Today, we're going to dive into one of the most powerful legal dramas ever created, Reginald Rose's 12 Angry Men. What's so amazing is that the entire story is set inside one stuffy, hot jury room. But in that one room, it manages to question the entire American justice system. So let's get into it. I want you to imagine something. You're on a jury. Murder trial. A young man's life is literally on the line. The case feels like a slam dunk, and the other 11 jurors are ready to vote guilty right now. But you're just not so sure. You have a little flicker of a doubt. What do you do? That's the exact question at the heart of 12 Angry Men. So here's the setup. We're in a jury room in New York City, and it's the hottest day of the summer. The air is thick, the fan is broken, and tensions are already high. A young man from the slums is on trial for killing his own father, and the charge? First-degree murder. That means if he's found guilty, it's a mandatory death sentence. And the judge made it crystal clear. The verdict has to be unanimous.
Okay, so the foreman decides to take a quick preliminary vote just to see where everyone stands. And bam, 11 hands shoot up for guilty. Looks like this is going to be over in 5 minutes, right? Wrong. One man, juror number 8, keeps his hand down. He votes not guilty. And with that one single act of defiance, the real story begins.
Now, this is really where the genius of the play kicks in. That jury room, it basically becomes a pressure cooker for 1950s American society. Every single man in there brings his own baggage, his job, his background, and most importantly, his prejudices. These aren't just 12 guys, they're 12 different slices of humanity. Let's meet the main characters driving this whole thing. You've got Juror 8, our quiet hero who just wants to talk it through. His biggest opponent is Juror 3, a guy who's clearly channeling all the anger he has for his own son into this case. Then you've got Juror 10, who makes no secret of his ugly prejudice. And of course, there's Juror 7, who honestly seems to care more about getting to his baseball game on time than he does about the kid's life. It's an absolutely explosive mix of personalities.
And here's what's so brilliant about Juror 8's first move. He doesn't stand up and declare the kid is innocent. Not at all. He just says, hey, can we just talk about it for a little while? He's not arguing for acquittal. He's arguing for the process. He's saying they have a duty to at least discuss it. It's a simple, powerful, and very smart move.
And on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, you have Juror 3. He keeps saying, I'm just sticking to the facts, no emotions here. But as the story goes on, you see that his whole reason for wanting a guilty verdict is tied up in the pain he feels about his own estranged son. He claims he's being objective, but he is anything but.
So how does one guy even begin to chip away at an 11-to-1 majority? Well, he doesn't do it by shouting. Juror 8 just starts calmly, methodically, asking questions about the evidence, the facts that everyone else just accepted without a second thought. He doesn't attack the men, he attacks their certainty. He starts with the murder weapon. The prosecution claimed it was this totally unique, one-of-a-kind knife. Then Juror 8 reaches into his pocket, pulls out an identical knife, and slams it on the table. Boom! So much for unique. Then he moves on to the witnesses. Could the old man downstairs really have heard the kid shout, "I'm gonna kill you," over the sound of a roaring elevated train? And what about the woman who saw the murder through her window? How could she be so sure when she wore glasses?
And maybe the most dramatic moment comes with the old man's testimony. The man who walked with a limp swore he got from his bed to his front door in 15 seconds to see the killer running away. Juror 8 says, let's test that. They literally reenact it right there in the jury room. And what do you know? It takes the man closer to 40 seconds. A key piece of the prosecution's timeline just evaporates. And as all these so-called facts start to fall apart, you begin to realize something. This play isn't really about this one kid anymore. What's really on trial here is the idea of justice itself. The whole thing really boils down to 2 words, reasonable doubt. And this is the most important part to understand. Juror 8 never proves the boy is innocent. He doesn't have to. His only job is to show that the prosecution's case isn't perfect, that it has holes. Because if there is a reasonable doubt that their story is true, the jury has to vote not guilty. And that's how the play explores these huge ideas. It shows us how fragile justice can be, how easily it can get derailed by people just being lazy or biased. We see how ugly prejudices about class or age can totally blind people. And above all, it's this incredibly powerful lesson about the responsibility we have as citizens in a democracy. And you know, maybe the person who says it best is Juror 11. He's an immigrant, a refugee who came to America to escape persecution, and he truly appreciates the system. He sees this duty, this jury service, not as a chore to get through, but as this amazing privilege. For him, this whole thing is the very soul of a free society.
So, spoiler alert, the play ends with a unanimous not guilty vote. Justice is served. It's an inspiring, uplifting moment. But, and this is a big but, how realistic is it? Does this kind of thing actually happen in the real world?
I mean, this story has been around for decades, right? It started as a live TV show back in '54, became that legendary movie, and it's still performed on stages everywhere. So its message clearly resonates with people. But the central idea of one man turning the tide, is that something we can actually count on?
Let's be real. The entire drama, the whole heroic arc, depends on this one principled guy managing to convince 11 other stubborn men that they're wrong. It's a wonderful, hopeful thought, but does it really happen?
Well, here comes the cold water. Researchers did a huge study on this, called the Chicago Jury Project, and what they found was pretty shocking. In 95% of cases, whatever the jury's first vote is, that ends up being the final verdict. That lone dissenter, that Juror 8 character, they almost always get worn down and give in to the majority. They almost never win. And that leaves us with this really tough, kind of uncomfortable question. 12 Angry Men gives us this beautiful, idealistic vision of justice, where one good person can save the day. But if the data shows us that hero almost never actually succeeds in real life, what does that say about our system? Is justice a strong, reliable process, or is it a fragile idea that relies on a hero who might not be there when we need them? It's a question that's just as important now as it was when the play was written.